All right, so the bones of the leg are a lot bigger, so I have to be a lot more zoomed out to actually show you this. So what we're looking here is at the femur, and we've got a left and a right. So the big thing when we're looking at the femur is I want you to notice they're very, very large bones. When you're looking at, let's say, the humerus in comparison by comparison, when we're looking at this thing, you'll notice how much smaller the humerus is compared to the femur. So that's one of the things that the pictures don't really do justice of. So if you're in the classroom, really take a look at that, because the bones of your leg, these are all bones of your leg here, and then the bones of your arm are going to be on the left, or on the left versus the right. So you can see the bones of the arm are a lot smaller than the bones of the leg. So let's talk about the three bones of the leg. We've got the femur here, we got two of them, we've got the tibia, and then we have the fibula. So let's talk about the femur first. So when we look at the femur, okay, the medial aspect, just like we saw with the arm, is going to be this head. Okay, so the head is that ball of the ball and socket. You can see it's very, very large. And you can see there's a definite neck. When you look at the humerus, on the other hand, you have this head, but the neck is not so noticeable, where the femur really does have that very noticeable neck on it. So that's one of the giveaways for, you know, which one's which when you're looking at it. So looking at the femur, kind of going to start from the top and work our way down. So we have the head of the femur, okay, on both of these. I'm going to flip this one over because this is the anterior aspect on both. I'm going to flip this one over so you can see the posterior aspect. You'll notice the big difference here is this groove here, okay, this notch, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So the heads of the femur are these guys here. We then have two bumps, and just depending on what side you're looking at, they're a little more noticeable on the posterior aspect. We have a bigger bump and a smaller bump. These are trochanters. The only place that you're going to have a trochanter is in your femur, because your femur is so large. So the greater trochanter is this area here, lesser trochanter is here. On this one, you can see greater trochanter here, lesser is down here. The next thing that we're going to have is the neck of the femur. So you can see this neck here, you can see it as well here, just from the head to the major portion or the shaft of the bone, you're going to have that neck region. Okay. From there, you're going to have the patellar surface. That is going to be on the anterior surface. So this area here is where your patella, where your kneecap would end up sitting. So with that kneecap, that's where it's going to sit. It's only going to be on the front. We then have the medial and lateral condyles and epicondyles. So that's really going to be more on the front. You can see a little bit, you can see it kind of on both, but condyle is going to be this rounded articular surface. So the down here is where your knee would be. Your tibia is going to come down here and it's going to articulate there. So your condyles are where it's articulating. So this area here are those condyles. Okay, so medial versus lateral, remember, wherever the head is going to be medial. So on this side, it's going to be medial. If we flip this one over, the medial side would be here. Okay, and then we have the lateral condyles. So the lateral is just the opposite side of the head. Okay, so looking at the bottom, you have to look at the top to figure out which is medial, which is lateral, and then you're going to see lateral is going to be here. If I flip this one over, then it's going to be here. Then we have the epicondyles. The epicondyles are a little easier to see on the posterior aspect. So if you notice up here, I'll kind of look at it. So you see the condyle here, and then you see this kind of projection upward here. Same thing, condyle here, this little projection. Those two little projections are the epicondyles. Epi means above. So they're above the condyles. So this side we know is medial, so this is going to be the medial epicondyle. We know that this side is lateral, so that's going to be the lateral epicondyle. Same thing here. So this is medial, this is going to be the medial condyle or epicondyle. This is lateral, so the lateral epicondyle really is going to be here. It's a little easier to see the lateral on the posterior aspect. The other thing that we have is we have this thing called the intercondylar fossa. So remember, fossa is a basin-like depression. Inter, I-N-T-E-R, means between, and we're looking at between the condyles. So we know that these are the condyles here, and here. That intercondylar fossa, so we know this is the patellar surface on the anterior aspect, so that intercondylar fossa is between these condyles on that posterior surface. So that notch here, that indentation, that groove, is that intercondylar fossa. So that is the femur. Let's look at the tibia. Okay, so when we look at the tibia, the way to remember the tibia is it kind of looks like a T. You have this flat surface here, and then it's got that long, so it looks like a capital T when you're looking at it. So how do you tell medial versus lateral? So remember how we talked about in the arm or in the wrist, you have those two spots that you feel those styloid processes on either side of the radius and the ulna. You have the same thing on your ankle. The difference is it's going to be, one part's going to be the tibia, the other part's going to be the fibula. So when these guys sit here, okay, you're going to feel these two bumps. On the tibia is your shin bone. It is in the medial leg. So this is the medial malleolus. So if this is the medial malleolus, this side is medial, this side is lateral. Okay, so when you're looking at the tibia, medial malleolus, if you're looking at the medial condyle, you see the surfaces here at the top of the tibia. This right here is the medial condyle. Why? Because the medial malleolus is here, so same side. That's the medial condyle, which makes this side the lateral condyle. So same thing, that's flat articular surface. Medial is going to be the side on the malleolus, that medial malleolus, and then the lateral side is going to be on the opposite side. And then when you look, if you're sitting down, if you're looking, if you touch the right underneath your patella, you're going to feel this tibial tuberosity. So that bump right there is the tibial tuberosity. The last bone is the fibula. Okay, so one thing that I'm going to just point out right off the bat, if you tell me tibula, there is no such thing. It's the tibia and the fibula. Okay, so with the fibula, the way to tell the difference between the lateral malleolus and the head of the fibula is that the lateral malleolus, if you look at it, is a little smoother, whereas the head of the fibula kind of looks a little bit more like a chair. So you can kind of see the back of the chair, kind of this area to be able to sit. So that's going to be the tibia sitting on that tibia, and then the fibula kind of has this more flattened area. So that's the lateral malleolus of the fibula, and the more chair-like structure is the head of the fibula.